Algeria stands on the eve of a pivotal democratic milestone. Today, July 2nd, 2026, over 24 million Algerians will head to the polls to elect 407 deputies to the People's National Assembly, coming on the heels of major structural reforms, including the April 2026 electoral law amendments to eliminate dubious business circles from politics. And amid complex regional geopolitical shifts, this parliament faces unprecedented responsibilities, from combating recent economic pressures to amplifying the voice of the diaspora. Tonight we ask, what are the immediate priorities for the next legislative body, and how will it shape the future of the new Algeria? Good evening and welcome to our special coverage on All 24 News. I'm Islam Said. Before we open the floor to our panel to dissect the stakes of tomorrow's vote, our own Zara Farjani takes a closer look at the final preparations and the evolving political landscape leading to the election day. Let's watch.
In a political climate shaped by Algeria's constitutional and political reforms, voters are heading to the polls to elect members of the National People's Assembly. The votes reflect the reforms introduced under the 2020 constitutional amendment, aimed at strengthening the country's legislative institution. The 10th parliament in the history of modern Algeria comes at a time of far-reaching reforms launched by President Abdelmadjid Tebboune. These include amendments to the electoral law, the law governing political parties, the electoral constituencies, and the distribution of parliamentary seats. With accredited political parties represented in elected assemblies, the National Independent Election Authority, and constitutional experts.
Attention is now turning to the legislative election scheduled for the 2nd of July, widely seen as a pivotal milestone in reshaping Algeria's political landscape. More importantly, they represent the culmination of the political and constitutional reforms introduced in recent years, beginning with the constitutional amendment that clearly separated responsibilities between the Independent National Election Authority, which oversees the electoral process, and the Ministry of the Interior, local authorities, and territorial planning, which is responsible for the organizational and logistical aspects of the vote.
The electoral process has been backed by extensive logistical and administrative support from the Ministry of Interior and local authorities to ensure the smooth conduct of the vote. The elections are being overseen by the National Independent Election Authority, which has constitutional responsibility for preparing, organizing, managing, and supervising every stage of the electoral process. This new parliamentary term also marks a shift in the profile of the candidates. Alongside the constitutional reforms, more than half of those running are young people and university graduates from a wide range of academic backgrounds. The Algerian diaspora has also taken part in the vote, sharing in the country's democratic process and aspirations.
What we have observed throughout the campaign for the 2026 legislative elections is the strong presence of two key elements. The most striking has been the prominent role of young people, both as candidates and as voters, reflecting the growing interest of Algeria's youth in these elections. It can be said that youth participation, particularly the large number of young candidates, as well as young voters, has the potential to make the decisive difference in the 2026 legislative elections, as young people are generally more aware of and responsive to the aspirations and needs of the Algerian people.
As Algeria elects its 10th legislature, the country's political class is looking to high voter turnout, supported by constitutionally guaranteed principles of transparency and electoral integrity, as well as broad public participation.
For his part, the acting president of the National Independent Authority for Elections, Karim Khalfan, urged the Algerian citizens to head massively to the polls to cast their ballot and choose responsibly their representatives to the People's National Assembly. Let's take a listen.
We call upon all citizens to participate strongly tomorrow, Thursday, July 2nd, by casting their votes and freely choosing whomever they deem most competent, deserving, capable, and suitable to represent them in the National People's Assembly.
Joining me tonight to analyze this decisive electoral moment are three distinguished guests, and we start with Mr. Kamal Khalfan, or Kamal Mansari, News Director at Jeune Indépendant, joining us here in Algiers studio. Great to have you with us tonight, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. And remotely via Teams, Dr. Abdel Nourtoumi, geopolitical analyst and MENA affairs expert, joining us from Paris. Thank you for being part of our coverage tonight, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on the program. And my special greetings to your distinguished guest.
Thank you. And Mr. Mohammed Chris Sassi, geopolitical observer and financial analyst, joining us from New York. Many thanks for joining us tonight, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invite, and my greeting to all the people present at that time to make this wonderful show because of you guys. Thank you.
Our pleasure. And let me start the discussion with you, Mr. Mansar, as we are in the critical final hours before the July 2nd vote. Recently, the regulatory authority explicitly called on audiovisual media to strictly observe neutrality and actively combat disinformation. How dramatically does this function, or the function of the media, transform on election eve, and how essential is this strict impartiality in building voter trust?
Well, on the eve of the electoral day, which is an important day for us as media, so it is important. So the media plays a role as we shift into strict and precise role from playing as a platform that we for campaigning and debate to switching into a strict guardian of the democratic process. When I think about the democratic process, I refer to the fact that most of the media in Algeria have endorsed the national authority, independent electoral authority charter that we have compelled, so we have signed, that we have to be neutral and to be fair and give every candidate a chance to have his advantage on the media. Now, on this period of silence, it is very important for the citizen to enjoy a calm, unpolluted environment that would affect his choice tomorrow. By talking about the neutrality, it is not a bureaucratic restriction. It is the very fundamental of the democratic process and our work as well as media. Because today, we notice that there's a lot of pollution, a lot of fake news that are spread through digital space, and it is very important for us to combat or at least bail out these rumors and these fake news to at least ensure or give the elector a sort of insurance that he will cast his vote in an unpolluted, in a calm and very responsible environment tomorrow. So this is mainly what is expected from the national authority towards the media, is to be fair and to make sure no candidate has experienced any disadvantage regarding his right to express himself, whether in audiovisual, written media, any space that is supposed to be fair, supposed to receive all their manifestos in this campaign. And this is what it is all about when the national authority talks about the neutrality and the role of the media in this particular moment.
Thank you indeed. And before we move to our next guest, reacting on the significant turnout recorded in polling stations outside Algeria, the acting president of the National Independent Authority for Elections, Karim Khalfan, hailed the commitment and attachment shown by the Algerian diaspora abroad towards their homeland through the large numbers of voters who accomplished their electoral duty.
We have recorded a strong turnout from the Algerian diaspora abroad, as we have seen in previous elections. The diaspora consistently demonstrates its readiness to participate in building state institutions and affirms its deep attachment to the homeland. Based on this, we have recorded a significant turnout of our diaspora in the 8 defined zones. These are still preliminary figures, but compared to 2021, they are considerably higher than the numbers recorded in 2021.
And if I could bring you in, Dr. Abdel Toumi, to the discussion, a significant development in these elections is the President's decision to increase the diaspora's representation in the People's National Assembly from 8 to 12 seats. From your vantage point in Paris, how does this institutional expansion, coupled with state financial support for young independent candidates abroad, reshape the diaspora's political engagement with their homeland?
Actually, it's a part of the process that started, actually was enhanced in light of the election of President Abdelmadjid Tebboune in 2019, in which that elections came in very decisive moments for Algeria, in which was the post-Hirak of 1929, where many of the community number, actually just I have kind of reserve on the term of diaspora because I don't like this term, but it is about the Algerian community who has actually shown its full involvement in what's going on in the homeland, and actually a sacrosanct sentiment that never actually left the Algerian community members, across our generation. So, and then it was actually indeed a serious political reform and economics reforms were launched by the President Abdelmadjid Tebboune in his first term, and it was actually implemented fully in the second term, where he himself actually got involved to put the Algerian community role in these dynamic and the new parameters of Algeria's politics. And we just saw actually a couple of days ago when he called for the creation of the Algerian Scientific Diaspora Council. It's a milestone for the Algerian community abroad. But having said that, this is again, it's still this democratic process which is making progress. It's still a learning process. And this is why it is, again, having the Algerian community abroad who hasn't involved fully in Algeria's domestic politics for many reasons. But lately, as I stated, they started slowly to get involved. And there is a key element, and for instance, here in France, and lately, following the rise of the hate speech and the Islamophobia and the Muslim anti-sentiment, and when we speak here about the Muslim anti-sentiment, this discourse that is inflamed by the extremists, the far-right media and politicians, and to some extent politician leaders actually who are a candidate for the next year France presidential elections. So all these elements have given to the Algerian community members here to look at seriously and to the stake of not only of these elections, but to what's going on abroad and at home, and to some extent with the rally around the flag effect. And we saw that actually these days we are in this FIFA World Cup enthusiasm of fever, and we saw how the Algerian community members abroad, and particularly in North America and Canada and the US, who have been showing full support for the Algerian national team. But it's not just basic or simplistic move about a sports event. It has a strong message that is sending to the authorities at home, and how the Algerians abroad are in fact concerned about the political process, and that is actually impacting their daily life.
Mm-hmm. Now let me turn to Mr. Mohammed Sassi, and let us focus now on the economic front, Mr. Sassi, and looking at the looking at the domestic front as well. Algerians face the challenging cost of living crisis earlier this year in March 2026. When the new assembly is seated, how critical in its role in working with the executive to enact urgent, tangible economic reforms that directly address these global and local financial pressures?
Well, it's an excellent question that you are erecting here. Yes, the cost of living a crisis experienced by Algeria in early 2026 represents more than a temporary economical challenge. It is a test of the country institutional capacity, economic governance, and as well as, which is not the last one, political legitimacy. When you have a rising price, when you have the inflation pressure, when you have the declining of the purchase power, and all this combined with the supply chain disruption, of course, we have this persistent youth, because Algeria, 70% of the population is less than 45 years old. And within the 45%, I think 30 or 37% are less than 30 years old. So you have the persistent youth unemployment that have combined to create a social economical pressure that cannot be resolved through executive action alone. You have to have a participation. Consequently, once the newly elected people, National Assembly, the l'Assemblée Populaire Nationale, l'APN, is constituted, the partnership have to be there with the executive branch, and it will become not merely desirable, but is indispensable. It's a question now of survival of the institution. I know I'm very maybe strong in my statement, but this is what it is. The assembly role have to expand far beyond passing legislation. It is central to ensuring, as I said before, that economical reform that you need. And these are socially have to be, I should say more specifically, have to be socially equitable, fiscally sustainable, and politically, and I reiterate the word, politically legitimate. Now, we can look at this also for international perspective, but I give you back the floor.
Mm-hmm. Let me go back to you, Mr. Mansari now. Late May, the National Independent Electoral Authority invalidated several candidate lists under the amended Article 200 of the electoral law, specifically targeting those who are linked to dubious business circles. So do these rigorous legal steps successfully, let's say, convince the average citizen to let's say that the electoral process has been cleansed, thereby, let's say, motivating them to head to the polling stations on Thursday?
Well, I think the strict implementation or the amended Article 200 is the cornerstone of the authority commitment to ensure a real and neutral election, and separating in the same time dirty money from the political sphere. Why? Because the authority has gone into ensuring the process by eliminating the list where there's dubious candidates and dubious, and even some candidates were not even had the skills or even had the capacity to be part of these elections. Mm-hmm. So it is very important. Why? Because it answers a deeply rooted and deeply seated debate in Algeria. We have seen in the previous elections how money could change a list, how people were buying the seats to be on the top of the list, and this has raised public outrage, especially when you consider, when you discover that the elections are not meant for the people concerned, for the political concern. So people are taking it as a privilege, as a trampoline to have more social, let's say, improvements instead of working for the people's interest. And this is the core question and the core issue that the entire process has been built to ensure that these elections will not resemble the previous ones. When the electors, when the citizens notice that this list, the open list, are meant for people who have capacity, who are neutral, who are clean, and who have the skills and even the university degrees, why not? So they can go to the list and not to people who are entering the election just for their own privilege. So it is a fundamental change in the psychological aspect. So this is why it is important for the national authority, or even for the government and even we as media, to say and to repeat that these elections are different, because they will prevail. What will prevail is the fact that what you are and not what you have. So it's not for you not coming to sit in the parliament because you have money or because you are protected or supported by business circles, but you are supported by your own capacities and your own skills. Yeah. This is the difference today. And I think when you have this whole environment has been cleaned, so you can play or you can favor, you can throw away the public apathy, which means that people will not be hesitant to vote, but instead they will probably vote, and we will have probably, and I say probably because nothing is sure, we will have a better turnout than the one that we had in 2021, which was 23%. So all the package, which is the legal package, the political package, and even this amended 200 article, is meant to ensure that the elections are clean. And when you notice that you are clean, so people will follow the electoral process. And this is what is expected tomorrow. We hope so.
Thank you. Point clear, Mr. Mansari. Turning to the broader strategic picture, Mr. or Dr. Toumi, and with complex geopolitical context in mind, will the new parliament's immediate priority be focused on projecting power and stability externally, or must internal domestic affairs take absolute precedence, Dr. Toumi?
Indeed, domestic politics, has an impact on external politics. And we saw how Algeria has been a strong voice and a pivotal state on its geopolitics and geoeconomics landscape, following all these, the turmoil of international politics, so that regional politics as well. And Algeria did actually position itself in this posture of, and this is, it is actually implemented in its new foreign policy doctrine that is based on active and preemptive foreign policy. So, and this doctrine is based on stability and development. And development here is extending its hand to the neighboring countries, and notably in the south, in the African Sahel, was where lately actually it is going through the tensions and turmoil. So this is why a country with the heavy and the power of Algeria has to position itself on this landscape, sure for its national security matter, but also for the stability and the development of the region. And this is actually extending further south. And we saw with the latest giant economic projects like the Trans-Saharan pipeline and its ties now on the bilateral level with countries such as Niger and Chad. And speaking about Chad, because it leads us to actually two unstable countries, Libya and Sudan, where Algeria's national security is directly impacted, and yet comes not only by the instability, but also about the consequences of this stability, such as the tragic or a tragedy of the humanitarian crisis, in which this humanitarian crisis has become a serious national security issues for the entire country, so that for Algeria, and this is why here this new legislature, or actually coming, or the 10th legislation session, it is important, and all those new MPs, I mean, have to look carefully and attentively with, of course, a vision and
Point clear, Mr. Dr. Abnour Toumi. Let me go back to Mr. Mohamed Krissassi, and let's focus on youth now. There is a prominent focus on youth participation in this cycle. Given the rapid shifts we are seeing in the global economy, how can this newly elected generation of youth representatives effectively contribute to building a resilient, diversified Algerian economy? And be brief, please.
Yes, I will try to be brief. I was before Mr. Yassin. Yes, just to answer your question, and I'm going to be very brief and very strong on this one. The prominence of youth participation in Algeria's current electoral cycle represents, at least my assessment, more than a symbolic effort at a political renewal. It reflects a strategic response to the country's long-term socio-economic challenges. As Algeria today navigates rapidly and it's evolving on the global economy, this is characterized by a technological transformation, by energy transition, by inflationary pressure, geopolitical uncertainty, and changing international trade pattern. So the inclusion of the new generation of representative has the potential to strengthen both policy innovation and institutional adaptability. Yes, youth representative can play a significant role in advancing Algeria's transition from an hydrocarbon dependent economy toward a more diversified and knowledgeable based on an economical and historical point. Why I say historical? Because historically, Algeria economy has run on oil and gas revenue. It was 95, and is still, by the way, majority of our source of income and revenue. So it makes country very vulnerable to fluctuation in global energy price. You saw it will not happen actually with Iran war, Iran-USA-Israel war. Yes, you have a little bit of an incentive because of the Brent barrel was at $120 when it was 3 months ago, the beginning of more than 120 days ago. But now it gets back to $77. So again and again, this dependence, this concentration of revenue can be changed with our youth. Why? Because we come with fresh mind, we come with the new generation, and we have the, how can I say that, the diversification that is going to come. So we have, again, I'm going to be brief. I know you want me to be brief. We have to, in my point of view, to prioritize the entrepreneurship of our youth with their mind for innovation, with their mind with this digital transformation that they master, with their mind to renewable energy, with their mind with the advanced manufacturing. That is going to help us to get out of this concentration of revenue on the oil, and also the sector that they are going to come, reduce our dependence on the hydrocarbon. And I give you back the floor because you become very agitated now. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mohamed Krissassi, for your brief answer. And perhaps this leads me to you, Mr. Mansari. How do you assess the active presence of women on the candidate list, I mean, across various provinces? Does this robust participation reflect a broader, permanent, structural, let's say, evolution in Algeria's political landscape or culture and the democratic practice?
Well, it reflects the fact that the presence, the active, solid presence of the female candidates in this election is an institutional pride. And at the same time, It depicts the fact that women are more involved in the political sphere. We have more than 2,000 candidates in this election. Of course, we have almost more than 11 million voting from female voters out of 24 million. The male voters are 30 million. So I think this is very important to encourage women. But this is not, let's say, something that has been driven from years of reforms. We have gone through different phases of reform until we reach this quotas today that women are more involved in the political sphere. It is important to see them. A lot of women would like to go into the local elections rather than the parliamentary election, because it is probably more easy for them to get elected. But today, this reflects that Algerian diversity. Women have their place in the political landscape. They have their place in the fact that they can shape the future of Algeria, especially the new generation of women who represent more than 7% of the entire young generation that have been engaging in this election. We have a lot of skilled women with managers, and we have seen how women have reached higher positions in the state, and probably we are talking in the future to see a prime minister, a female prime minister in Algeria, which will be a revolutionary. Of course, there is still some traditional restriction and obstacles that make the women less involved as a person, as an entity in these elections, but the change are coming the more, and we see what's going on social media, how a lot of them are active, how a lot of them are active in TVs and a lot of public places. So it is a sign that the elections attracts more and more women, and the fact that we are restricting the 1/3 of the quotas of the list should be with women. It is indeed an encouragement, but in the same time, in some areas, a lot of them could try to be more than 1/4. So I think it depends on the region, it depends on the constituencies, but in the same time, it's a clear indication that women are present in these elections, and furthermore.
Thank you indeed. Let me go back to you, Dr. Toumi. Long story short, returning to the global lens, how are, let's say, international media outlets interpreting the participation of marginalized groups and the overall electoral climate in Algeria? Second question is, do you consider their reading an accurate indicator of the country's democratic progression?
No, actually, they are not particularly the Western mainstream media that who have been having tarnishing the image of new Algeria. And we saw lately, actually, particularly the last 5 years or so, there is a progress, and Algeria is moving forward. Actually, I stated earlier about its new foreign policy dynamic and parameters that actually, and it's how Algeria did position itself on that posture, whether on, again, regional or international. We saw the role of Algeria as a non-permanent security, national UN Security Council non-member time, in the role how did was a strong voice for the voiceless, and I mean by this for the Palestinians and the Western Sahara and other issues that Algeria has been again a strong voice for it for those causes for decades, and of course its role on international politics, even though the latter has been declined in light of the crisis. I mean, it started with the Ukraine war to the carnage in Gaza and the genocide in Gaza to the ongoing war. I mean, the U.S. Zionist state coalition on Iran. So all these parameters, Algeria is actually taking this much seriously, and this is why, again, back to not only to those Western media who have been, again, speaking or trying to tarnish the Algeria image because of its strong positions or just for just causes. And this is why this new, actually, legislation, tense legislation on those MPs who will be elected, I mean, they have a huge responsibility, not only about domestic politics when it comes to check and balances, but also how to shape the, help the Algerian diplomacy. So again, and this is it's a package, and that goes with the process that, again, as I stated earlier, it is a learning process, and this democratic process is making a process in which it is impacting a great deal the Algerian community abroad. And this is why the role of Algerian abroad, and we saw the how the President Abdelmajid Tebboune, who insisted again for the Algerian Scientific Diaspora Council, those, I mean, they are, as we say in French, la crème de la crème of Algeria, and there are thousands of them, and many Algerians now are saying, I mean, they want to give back to Algeria.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed Abdel Toumi. Mr. Mohammed Chris Sassi, the upcoming assembly will comprise 407 deputies facing immense modern challenges. To what extent does this legislative institution desperately need to modernize its oversight and regulatory tools to properly audit the economic and institutional reforms initiated by the state?
Excellent question, Yassin. Yes, the
Islam,
incoming...
it's not Yassin, sir.
Islam, I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
The incoming National People Assembly, our INP, comprise, as you said, of 407 deputies. They enters office as a particularly significant moment in Algeria political and economical development. The country, my assessment at least, and my humble assessment, is confronting multiple and interconnected challenges, including economic diversification, as I was saying before, fiscal sustainability that you have to look at, demographic pressure. Yes, you know, you have to consider our demographic pyramid. You know, democracy, as I said before, the majority of our population is a very young population. And you have also, and then you come to the point that you have the technological transformation, the energy transition, as I was talking before, the climate change, and you saw what happened in Europe, and I'm sure it's going to come to Maghreb and North of Africa as well. And you have this increasingly volatile international economic environment, and I will say it again, look what happened to the Detroit of Hormuz, the stupidity of the war, that the war of choice of Mr. Trump, how le ruissellement économique, this economical causality that create the cow, that you are and you are a victim of it, absolutely, even though I said, you know, for a period of time you have the Brent as $122. Now, all of this assembly effectiveness will depend not only on this legislative function, but also, and is also as important, this ability to modernize its oversight and regularity capacities to ensure the government reform are implemented transparently, I said again, transparently, with a lot of efficiency and in accordance with the national development objective in the context of international and global trade and political awareness. Now, the parliamentary oversight is again and again a fundamental pillar of democracy, of democratic governance, and very, very important to protect our institution with, of course, accountability. And that's, I insist with the word accountability. Now, I know that modernizing parliamentary oversight require more than my words that I'm talking about now, or updating legislative procedures. It's not the issue. It is necessary. It's not necessary. It's primordial that our institutional capacity include enhancing, how can I say that, enhancing the committees, but not any committees, with the expertise. You do a committee, not with the legislator, also with an expert within the legislation. And I'm talking about all the sector. And this will have, at that when it will be done, and I hope it will be done, an effective oversight, increasingly depend on access to reliable data, and also absolutely, and I know you want me to conclude and give me just this one more word, this version that I'm just I'm just trying to illustrate, it's for the own good of the country. We have to pursue a system specialized with experts and a robust accountability of the mechanism. That's very important. It's not what you are doing, it's how you did it. Making a law is very easy, but now you have the implementation and you have to have the expert, not only the legal system, but also the operational system.
Thank you. Point clear, Mr. Mohammed Krissasi. Looking at the broader regional context, Mr. Mansari, the geopolitical region here surrounding Algeria, let's say, is fraught with instability. Briefly speaking, what is the fundamental importance of holding these elections on time and ensuring the absolute stability of the state's constitutional institutions, I mean, in the face of such a volatile environment?
Yeah, the geopolitical climate and environment surrounding Algeria is certainly complex and volatile. And the fact that we are holding these elections on time, it's a clear message that we send, that our proving our resilience, our maturity in organizing these elections. And in the same time, it is a clear message that Algeria is stable. Algeria is a confident country that we can rely on, and it could be in the same time an example on how we organize elections in such an environment. I refer to what's going on in Mali, Libya, and even in the Sahel region, which is a complex and unstable environment. So as we are heading also the African Parliament, Algeria is now showing that how it is undergoing this election, which could be a sort of benchmark for other countries and members of the African Union and how to organize and how to deal. We can sell our experience to the African nations, especially that now our voice is growing and expanded in Africa. So it is an important step on the fact that our institutions are stable. The constitutional process is going in a smooth way with no risk, with the fact that we are headed into a more stable, let's say, calendar, whether this calendar for tomorrow or even the coming domestic elections. So all this depicts that Algeria is stable when you ensure the fact that you are able to do it, to guarantee these elections is a clear message, as I said, to all the other countries. And at the same time, this will pave the way to all the 407 deputies and parliamentary members who will come and focus on for future agendas and how to stabilize Algeria, how to promote Algeria outside, and how to give Algeria the tools to be more reliant on its own resources rather than the oil and gas dependency. This is extremely important in this environment.
Picking up on that, Dr. Abdel Toumi, keeping the recent Sahel dynamics in mind, how can this new parliament keep pace with the new Algeria's strategic aspirations to solidify its diplomatic presence in the continent and influence within its vital African depth?
Actually, it is again a part of its new doctrine, and when it comes to its environment, I mean, the geopolitics and geoeconomics landscape, following all those volatile events that unfortunately are shaping for the moment not only regional politics but international politics, and we saw how the dynamic of the pointless war on Iran did change all those parameters. So Algeria is concerned, and Algeria as a rising state and a pivotal state on its geopolitics landscape is having a say and sending a strong message in terms, I think I stated earlier, about stability, development, and again, of course, security, and therefore prosperity for the region. And this is why the Algerian model today is taken seriously by other countries, I mean, who are looking at Algeria for its achievement, I mean, domestic politics achievements, and with these political reforms and that go reforms that go with the economic reforms, in which Algeria has become a hub for international investors who are looking at Algeria as a result of its prosperity and its stability. And this stability will actually rhyme with the prosperity for the region. But I have just, if I may, actually a final word about the role of the
be brief, please.
The Algerian community members, actually, who are, again, who they want to give back to Algeria. And they are making an end to asking to Algeria, give them, and I'm quoting here the quote from the American President George F. Kennedy, about, who addressed his nation. So, but ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Mohamed Krissassi, beyond the immediate post-election phase, brief answer, what are the most pressing, let's say, overreaching legislative priorities that the newly formed People's National Assembly must tackle in its first parliamentary session?
Well, as I said, behind the immediate post-election period, the newly APN face a decisive first parliamentary session that will largely, and I repeat, will largely determine the credibility of Algeria's ongoing political and economical reform agenda. The l'APN should not be viewed as isolated policy initiative, but as part of a broader strategy to strengthen the state resilience. As I said, first one, for me, at least in my point of view as an economist, is accelerating the economic diversification. We have to add the Assembly to go to the foremost legislative session and make a priority to establish the legal foundation for reducing, really, and I repeat myself, reducing this concentration on the dependence of hydrocarbons. And that we have to go to significant energy resources and try to find the national economy away from the fluctuation of this gas and oil economy, foundation economy. And as I said, 90% of our economy revenue come from there. And then we have also to strengthen our fiscal governance and public finance management. Yes, you have to stop all this waste of money. And this is a second critical priority involving a comprehensive reform of Algeria's fiscal governance architecture. Because, rising the public expenditure, having this inflation pressure, having all these the product that, the subsidiary product, it's a burden on the economy. I'm not saying that you have to stop subsidizing some product, but I say you have to look at it more carefully, because you have to have the social protection that requires something to do, but you have to be accountable and making sure that it's sustainable for the economy. And I'm not going to I'm trying to be brief and answer the third point for me, is the modernization of the legislative and regularity framework. As I said before, having a law is fine, but you have to apply it and make sure that everybody, and I said again, everybody respect that law that was voted, because the economical transformation require an equally modern legislative framework for everyone. The Assembly must review and update the law governing the investment, for example, the banking, the financial market, the competition policy, the digital commerce, the cybersecurity, and I can go on and on the list. But the rapid pace of technology will change all that, will help us towards that. But the Parliament, and I will conclude on that, they have to be addressing all this, and I will not forget to tell you, it will be my last point, Again, I'm going to go back to the youth employment and the human capital development. One of Algeria's most precious treasure is our youth, and we have to protect them.
Thank you.
And this
Thank
is
you,
the role
Mr.
also of the legislative.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed Krissasi. And one last question for you, Mr. Mansari. The new law number 2608 on political parties adopted this past April requires extensive transparency regarding, let's say, party financing and structural organization. Briefly, I mean, answering this question, does this tighter administrative framework protect the state's institutions, or are there genuine concerns about it heavily, let's say, limiting political pluralism?
Well, the adoption of this law 2608 is part of the modernization of our political ecosystem. It is vital to clarify that this framework is not restrictive, but it is protective. Why? Because true pluralism cannot survive in chaos or opacity. It has to be undergone into a clear framework with chances span on everyone, on every parties, with no anything that could hinder the capacity of the parties to participate in any electoral process. So it is our political system is spanning from diverse let's say, tendencies, from Islamic to national parties like the FLN, the RND, or even the MSP. So this landscape is important. So ensuring the fact that these parties are competing in a clear environment, this is what is most important, what is expected by our voters. If the voters notice that this is clear and clean, they will go cast their ballots.
Unfortunately, we must leave the debate there. I want to extend my deepest thanks to tonight's distinguished panel, Mr. Kamal Mansari in Algiers, Dr. Abdel Noor Toumi from Paris, and Mr. Mohammed Krissasi in New York. Tonight, we unpacked the massive stakes.
Your name is Islam. I'm sorry. I misspelled your name today. Sorry about that.
It's fine. It's fine. No harm's done. So as I was saying, tonight we unpacked the massive stakes surrounding July 2nd's legislative elections, from the vital need for institutional stability to stringent new electoral laws, the economic recovery, and empowering the diaspora's voice. As 407 new deputies prepare to take their seats in the People's National Assembly, the ultimate success of this democratic exercise will be measured by their ability to confront internal challenges while navigating complex global realities. Thank you for joining us tonight. Good night.